Previously on Stranger Things. The season opens with Mike, Dustin, Lucas and Will playing a game of Dungeons & Dragons and fending off a monster they call the Demogorgon. However, on his way home, Will faces a monster of his own and is abducted. The next morning, Will's mum Joyce and his brother Jonathan realise he's not there and start to panic. At school, the boys also realise Will is missing while being bullied by a couple of mouth breathers. We then meet Mike's sister Nancy and her best friend Barb, who's concerned about Nancy's new relationship with the school heartthrob Steve. We're introduced to the local sheriff Jim Hopper, who Joyce talks to about Will's disappearance. Meanwhile, a local government facility is suiting up and venturing into an alien-looking gateway, and we learn that a young girl recently escaped the facility. Her name is Eleven. Eleven sneaks into a nearby diner for something to eat and makes friends with the owner of the establishment. We learn that Eleven has special abilities before the owner is murdered and Eleven escapes once again. The boys are told not to go looking for their friend as the search escalates. Joyce receives a shocking phone call from Will, and the boys go looking for Will despite their warning but come across Eleven instead. They take Eleven home to Mike's house where she sleeps the night in the basement. Mike learns of the bad men coming after Eleven, and Eleven learns the basics of modern life before recognizing Will in one of Mike's pictures. In a flashback, we're showing the awful test that Eleven has been put through because of her powers, and the leader of the operation, Dr. Brenner, is seen as her fatherly figure who she calls Papa. The boys then learn of Eleven's powers as Hopper continues searching for Will, who Eleven explains is in a place known as the Upside Down, being held prisoner by the Demogorgon. Elsewhere, Nancy and Barb attend a party at Steve's parents' house, which Barb does not approve of. Nancy then ditches Barb before she is photographed by Jonathan and disappears into the night. Joyce receives shocking phone call number 2 and discovers that Will is talking to her through the electricity, and let's just say her household gets pretty lit. Hopper starts investigating the government facility and Nancy realizes that Barb is missing. Joyce meanwhile makes progress contacting Will before the Demogorgon reveals itself to her. Hopper discovers the facility is caught up in multiple lawsuits, but all hope is soon lost when Will's dead body is recovered from a river. However, Eleven manages to tune into Will singing on Mike's walkie-talkie. Joyce and Jonathan identify Will's body, but Joyce refuses to believe the corpse is her son. The police start looking into Barb's disappearance, and Nancy and Jonathan admit to each other that they saw a faceless creature the night Barb vanished. The boys prepare Eleven to be taken out in public, and they all attend a school assembly for Will, where Eleven teaches the mouth breathers a lesson. Hopper starts to connect the dots and discovers Will's body is a fake. He breaks into the facility and discovers what is really going down there, then suddenly wakes up in his house where he finds a bug in his light fixture. Nancy and Jonathan go looking for the faceless creature, and the kids go looking for the entrance to the Upside Down, which Eleven stops them from finding for their own safety. Nancy finds the entrance before confronting the Demogorgon, then is saved by Jonathan, who Steven is getting jealous of. After sabotaging the boys' plan, Eleven runs away and steals some Eggos, which is her favourite food, from a local grocery store. Hopper confirms Joyce's suspicions and they talk to a severely disabled woman who lost her daughter to the government facility. Nancy and Jonathan equip themselves to fight the Demogorgon before Jonathan is arrested for fighting Steve. Hopper and Joyce then team up with Nancy and Jonathan as they are looking for the same enemy. The boys have an encounter with their bullies, which causes Mike to jump off a cliff. However, he is saved by Eleven, who returns and breaks the bully's arm. However, the bad men track down the children, who are now on the run, and Eleven saves the day again by flipping one of their vans. Steve ends up being one of the good guys and Hopper finds the kids. Eleven tries to communicate with Will to no avail, however she thinks she could do it if her senses were blocked out and she was submerged in water. She then finds Barb's dead body and encourages Will to hold on a little longer. Meanwhile, Hopper and Joyce break into the facility to find Will before they are captured by security. Hopper then makes a deal with them to allow Joyce and him into the Upside Down. While in there, we see flashbacks of Hopper's daughter who died of cancer at a young age. Nancy, Jonathan and Steve lure the Demogorgon to the house and try to trap it, but fail. Mike confesses his true feelings for Eleven before the bad men arrive to take her away, but are interrupted by the Demogorgon, who kills them all. Joyce finds Will on the brink of death, but Hopper resuscitates him. Eleven grows weak but uses her last ounce of strength to disintegrate the Demogorgon, taking her with it. Will recovers in hospital and Hopper is seen getting into a government vehicle. 1 month later and we again see the boys playing, but Mike still misses Eleven. Nancy ends up back with Steve and Will is still suffering from his experience in the Upside Down. Hopper is then seen leaving Eggos in the woods. We're first introduced to a girl who can make people see what she wants them to see, and she reveals a tattoo just like 11's. Mike, Dustin, Lucas and Will head down to their local arcade where they find a player named Mad Max has beaten their high score in Dig Dug, when suddenly Will experiences the Upside Down and witnesses something emerging in the sky before snapping out of his trance. Hopper is back at work and being pestered by a local conspiracy theorist who is starting to piece things together regarding 11 and the facility, but Hopper dismisses him to look into a local farmer's pumpkin patch that's been poisoned. We're introduced to Billy and his younger sister Max, who the boys discover is the notorious Mad Max who beat their high score. Joyce has a new boyfriend named Bob and is trying to get some answers about Will's recent episodes in the Upside Down. Dr. Owens is Will's specialist who also supervises the maintaining of the Upside Down gateway, preventing it from spreading. Nancy and Steve visit Barb's parents' house, who just hired a private investigator to help find their daughter, which overwhelms Nancy with guilt. Jonathan tries to cheer Will up before he has another episode and witnesses the shadow monster. Hopper retreats to a cabin in the woods where him and 11 are currently residing. 11 escaped the Upside Down and now Hopper won't let her leave the cabin in order to keep her safe. Joyce discovers Will's drawings and alerts Hopper, who is the only person she can trust. The boys are the only ones that dress up for Halloween but try to enlist Max into their group. We learn that her brother is bad news and he threatens to run the boys over with his car. Hopper looks further into the poison crops in the area and finds a pattern. Joyce and Bob fantasize about moving away to escape these events, and Nancy confesses to Steve that their relationship is bullshit. Meanwhile, 11 finds a way to communicate with Mike, and Dustin finds a little creature in his trash and calls him Dart. Not sure what it is, Dustin starts doing some research. Bob tells Will to stand up to the monsters that haunt him, and while one relationship blossoms, another ends. Tired of being cooped up in the cabin, 11 leaves in search of Mike and the gang, who are trying to figure out what Dart is. Will recognises it from the Upside Down and the group decide to destroy it, but Dustin has other ideas. 11 finds Mike and thinks he's falling for Max, so she makes Max fall instead. 11 has a meltdown, Will gets possessed, and Jonathan and Nancy decide to meet up with Barb's parents to tell them the truth. Little do they know they're being watched and are taken to the facility where they are warned against telling anyone about the town's impending doom. The shadow monster starts taking over Will's body and he starts drawing some sort of map. 11 finds newspaper clippings of a woman that is likely her mother, so she tries to communicate with her and learns her own real name is Jane. Nancy and Jonathan skip town in search of answers and Dart eats the family cat. Hopper discovers the cause of the crop poisoning, some upside down tunnels which try to consume him. Dart gets pucked and 11 goes looking for her mother and finds she is traumatized by the events that separated the two of them. Nancy and Jonathan meet up with the conspiracy theorist and they help each other fill in the blanks. Bob helps Joyce find Hopper and Will starts feeling the damage the facility is causing to the gateway. Dustin teams up with Steve to help kill Dart, but he's already escaped into the tunnels. Joyce gets fired up and so do John and Nancy. Hopper recovers after his experience and is shown the full scale of the upside down tunnels. The gang meet up at the junkyard to take care of these demo dogs, and Steve saves the day. The monster inside Will ambushes the workers in the tunnels, and 11 learns of her long-lost sister who was raised in the facility with her. Carly, aka 8, and her gang of vigilantes spend their time serving justice to those who have wronged them. 8 trains 11 to become more powerful and gives her a bitchin' makeover. 11 joins the dark side but remembers that her friends need her and returns to Hawkins. The demo dogs infiltrate the facility and our heroes are trapped inside. We learn why Billy is the way that he is, and Nancy and Jonathan return to help out back at the facility. Bob sacrifices himself so the rest can escape, and Dustin points out that the shadow monster displays traits of a mind flayer, which means that Will feels what it feels. The demo dogs return, but so does 11, and she's reunited with Mike, but there's some tension between her and Max, but a different type of tension between Billy and Mike's mum. 11 returns to the facility to end things once and for all. Max takes down Billy and the heat gets turned up on Will. The gang destroy the tunnels and demo dogs while 11 uses everything she has to finally close the door on the upside down. 1 month later and Barb is finally laid to rest and Hopper officially adopts 11. Back at school, everyone attends the snowball. Dustin strikes out twice before Nancy swoops in. Mike and 11 share a long-awaited kiss and all is well in Hawkins. At least for now. A Russian base is working on a super weapon to open up the gateway between our world and the Upside Down, and are near the point of success. Meanwhile, Mike and Eleven's relationship is going strong, much to the disgust of Hopper. The gang minus Dustin, who is at camp, meets up at Hawkins' brand new hotspot, Starcourt Mall, where we meet Steve's Scoops Ahoy work colleague, Robin. But we're interrupted by a citywide blackout caused by some suspicious underground activity, which also happens to disable magnets. Dustin gets a warm welcome back at home, but the heat's really getting turned up at the swimming pool. Hopper gets some advice from Joyce about Eleven's relationship with Mike, and Joyce recommends writing a heartfelt letter, which doesn't come naturally to Hopper. Nancy and Jonathan are struggling to find their way as interns for the local newspaper, and Dustin shows the newly reunited gang his high-tech radio transmitter, which he uses to communicate with his girlfriend he met at camp, which nobody believes. Mike gets under Hopper's skin, the letter is discarded, and Mike is kicked out and threatened to leave Eleven alone. With his transmitter, Dustin accidentally tunes into a secret Russian broadcast, and hears a secret code whilst Karen backs out of a date with Billy, who finds himself otherwise occupied. Eleven tries to meet up with Mike, but too scared to confront Hopper, Mike lies to get out of it, which makes a very happy Hopper, who scores a date with Joyce. The magnets stop working again, Nancy and Jonathan take their journalistic work into their own hands, and Eleven decides to hang out with Max instead. Billy is not his normal self after the night before, and Lucas's sister Erica stirs up trouble at Scoops Ahoy. The journalistic heroes go to see an old lady whose rats are behaving oddly familiar. Hopper has problems following the mayor's rules, and Eleven has problems following Hopper's rules of staying out of public. Concerned about the blackouts and magnets, Joyce seeks assistance from the one and only Mr. Clark. Eleven gets a new look and catches Mike in a lie, resulting in him getting dumped. Hopper is then stood up after Joyce is distracted by the magnets. Billy kidnaps one of his colleagues from the pool and brings her to the steel mill where he was previously taken. And Eleven accidentally stumbles across him whilst using her powers to spy on the boys. Will has trouble accepting that the group is growing up, and Joyce tries to explain to Hopper why she's been so distracted. Nancy's rat story gets turned down, Eleven learns of the girl Billy kidnapped, and Joyce and Hopper retrace their footsteps in the research lab from their last brush with the Upside Down. But someone is hot on their trail. Dustin, Steve and Robin figure out the meaning of the Russian code words and learn of a secret meeting, and the old lady with the rats has a secret of her own. Eleven and Max investigate Billy's strange behaviour, and it turns out everything's fine, or at least it appears that way before they bring more victims to the steel mill where a familiar creature is feeding, and the kids are noticing a familiar pattern. They decide to go after Billy and lure out the creature with what Will knows it hates: heat. A plan is hatched for the secret Russian meeting, and Erica's assistance is required to fit in the air duct to get there. Hopper learns the mayor is corrupt and obtains information on what is really going on, and Erica is successful in accessing the Russian meeting place. This meeting place, however, turns out to be a major operation being performed underneath Hawkins. The kids corner Billy in a sauna, and Eleven fights the monster inside of Billy. The kids escape, but the people of Hawkins aren't so lucky. Dustin and gang attempt to find a way out of this newfound base, while Joyce and Hopper try to find a way in and kidnap the Russian scientist Dr. Alexei. But as usual, someone is right behind them. Joyce tries to get information out of Alexei without success, and they try to find their way back to town. Steve and friends find a way out of the elevator of the Russian base, and Alexei finds his way to 7-Eleven. The kids discover what Billy has been up to, and Hopper and friends enlist the help of conspiracy theorist Murray, who turns out was pretty accurate with his conspiracies. The kids go to the hospital where the old rat lady was kept to learn more, but the creature is feeding too fast. In the Russian base, the gang discovers the upside down super weapon and then try to escape, but Robin and Steve are captured. Eleven fights the creature in the hospital and it retreats underground to feed. The kids plan, the adults plan, and Dustin and Erica plan to rescue Robin and Steve, who are being drugged and interrogated by the Russians. Using her powers to find Billy, Eleven gets a peek inside his memories, which are now shrouded in darkness, and they lead her to the steel mill where the creature is growing stronger by the minute. At the fun fair, the town of Hawkins is celebrating, oblivious to the looming danger right on their doorstep. Dustin and Erica find Steve and Robin, who are rendered useless due to the drugs, and they finally find an exit. The creature comes for Eleven and her leg is badly wounded. In search for the kids, the adults head to the fair, and Murray draws attention to the sexual tension between Joyce and Hopper, and finds a friend in Alexei. The kids go to a nearby store to plan how to defeat the creature. Dustin finally makes contact with the rest of the kids, whilst Robin and Steve get the drugs out of their system. Steve confesses he likes Robin, and Robin explains he's barking up the wrong tree. Meanwhile, at the fair, whilst Joyce and Hopper search for the kids, Murray shows Alexi the fun that can be had at a carnival. Hopper, Joyce and Murray narrowly manage to escape the fair. In her usual fashion, 11 saves the day. However, the wound in her leg overcomes her and she discovers a part of the creature is inside her and she must remove it. The gang is then reunited and learn the Russian superweapon needs to be shut down to close the gate between the two worlds. It's Hopper, Joyce and Murray's turn to go underground and Dustin's transmitter is used to talk to them. Murray goes deeper inside the base to destroy the weapon from the inside out, but time is running out. Since 11 removed the creature from her leg, her telekinetic powers are now gone, and the creature now knows where they are. Whilst waiting for Murray, Joyce and Hopper open up about their feelings towards one another. Murray tries to sabotage the super weapon and the kids try to escape the mall, but are thwarted by Billy. Well, nearly. It turns out Dustin really does have a girlfriend. Billy comes for 11 and presents her to the creature, but the gang distracts it with fireworks. To destroy the superweapon once and for all, 2 people are needed. However, Hopper is delayed fighting the Russian henchmen. 11 reminds Billy of who he really is by showing him the memories she saw. The Byers household decides to move away, and a powerless 11 is going with them. Mike and 11 share a final kiss before Joyce hands over Hopper's discarded letter for her to read. Meanwhile, in Russia, the Russians have prisoners being held in cells, taking them out and feeding them to an all too familiar creature.